Energy Flow and Photosynthesis, Lecture 9. The learning outcomes in this lecture will start with an introduction to US energy consumption. Then we will step through an innovative idea to be able to harness algae as a means of producing biodiesel. Then we'll have a look at some concepts of energy, one being the conservation of energy. And then we have an analogy that we will use as a framework to look at different forms of energy and energy transformations. And finally, we will focus on photosynthesis and look at autotrophs. Those are the organisms such as algae and green plants that are able to photosynthesize. In that process, they convert light energy to chemical energy. And because of that, those organisms are the basis of all food chains. Currently, the United States is the largest consumer of fossil fuels in the world. China is approaching the US consumption levels and, I don't know, perhaps even surpassing them. From the graph or from the chart on the lower right-hand corner, here it shows the energy consumption by fuel type. Currently, the United States gets 22% of its energy from coal, and a lot of this coal is used for production of electricity from coal-fired power plants. 23% of energy consumption comes from natural gas. I suspect that that percentage has increased and the coal percentage is in decline. There's a lot of new sources of natural gas in the United States obtained by fracking. The purple segment represents 8% of electricity or 8% of energy produced from nuclear power plants electricity production. But the biggest source of energy consumption currently is petroleum. So that includes diesel for trucks and trains, petroleum or gasoline for cars, and aviation fuel. Petroleum has an advantage of being easy to transport. It can be piped in a pipeline, it can be driven in trucks, it can be shipped in tankers, and we are very dependent upon petroleum. The little green segment of pie represents renewable energy sources. Most of these are used to produce electricity, including solar energy, hydroelectric, geothermal energy, biomass, and wind energy. We will look at these energy sources in more detail when we look at Chapter 20, Sustainable Solutions. In terms of a definition, energy is defined as the capacity to do work. At a cell level, this work includes things like the synthesis of large molecules from small monomer building blocks, the ability to move substances into a cell, such as active transport, and out of a cell, things like nerve impulses, muscle contractions. All of these are examples of cellular work. When we looked at the characteristics of life, one of the characteristics of life we kind of summarized as metabolism. All of the chemical reactions taking place inside of a cell, those require energy, and without a source of energy, all life on Earth would stop. And the sources of energy boil down to either being light or chemical energy. It's very simple, it's either or. All organisms need a continual input of energy. As the slide suggests, energy basics. Energy cannot be created, so organisms must attain it from an outside source. Humans and other animals, and we can add in there fungi, obtain energy they need by eating food molecules. It can be a range of different types of food. Some animals eat other animals, some animals eat plants. Some fungi, for example, feed upon dead wood, but they are organic molecules. And the energy that animals depend upon is stored in the chemical bonds of their food molecules. As such, that could be defined as chemical energy. Chemical energy is a form of potential energy. It's stored and it has the potential to be released. The process of digestion breaks some of those bonds from large molecules to small molecules, but it's the next step when those small molecules, such as glucose, are imported by cells and those bonds are broken down to produce ATP, and ATP is the molecule that powers all work inside of a cell. We'll spend a little bit of time stepping through this infographic here, but in the center it shows you green algae. They are, by definition, photoautotrophs. They have the ability to make all of their own molecules using the raw materials of carbon dioxide that they obtain from the air or dissolved in the water, from light, and then they need some additional mineral nutrients, particularly nitrogen, that allows them to make their proteins, to make their DNA. As such, algae don't require much in the way of space or infrastructure or even soil in order to be grown in large quantities. They can be grown in ponds, so open water ponds. They can even be grown and pumped through glass tubes where the light travels through the glass and allows them to photosynthesize. Then, once the algae have been active, their metabolism has produced all of their own molecules, a number of these molecules, as the diagram shows you to the right, we can use. So biodiesel is a hydrocarbon made by the algae. Then that can be used directly. That can go into trucks or car engines that are diesel burning engines. In addition to oils, algae make carbohydrates, and the carbohydrates, sugars, can be fermented to produce ethanol, and ethanol also can be used as a car truck fuel. A lot of ethanol currently comes from corn. Algae is a more efficient way of producing ethanol. Or that ethanol could be burned as again a fuel source to produce heat, to heat water to produce steam, and that is used to turn turbines to produce electricity. Proteins obtained from the algae can be compressed into animal feed cakes, and then any leftover materials that's not digestible by cows or fermentable to make ethanol, again dried, compressed, and burnt, and that can be used again as a fuel source to generate electricity, or plowed into land as an organic fertilizer. So we'll spend a little bit of time with this infographic here. We start off with a mountain biker at a low level with this mountain bike, fresh from driving to the trailhead, with a snack bar. So the snack bar, like an oat bar, cereal bar, contains potential energy locked up in the food molecules, perhaps sugars, perhaps starch, perhaps proteins. So from that starting point, by consuming the energy bar, that chemical energy is then in this case, his or her digestive system. The digestion breaks down the chemical bonds, converts the stored chemical energy into ATP. And we will go through this in the next chapter when we look at cell respiration. But you may be familiar with the next part. As you cycle uphill, you expend energy. That's muscle energy used to drive the wheels, that's used to drag you and your weight and the weight of the bike uphill. The more strenuous the exercise, the steeper the slope, the longer you cycle, the more energy you use. Some of it is used to propel the bicycle forward. The rest, you might notice that you get hot. You might sweat. That is energy as well. That represents heat, the energy that had been in the food bar, the energy that had been used by the muscles, some of it is lost or converted to heat and then lost from the body. The air warms up, the bike seat warms up. If you use the brakes, the wheel rims warm up. Then you get to the top of the hill. You can pause, you can take a selfie, you can admire the view. At that point, you're not moving forward. The kinetic energy of movement has ceased, but what you've gained in cycling up the hill is potential energy. Now, the fun part is when you convert the potential energy, the positional energy on top of the hill, into kinetic energy, which is motion. As you go downhill, it requires less muscle energy, but you'll be familiar with the bike itself. Traveling downhill has energy. It's going faster than going uphill. So then you might convert some of that motion energy, kinetic energy, into heat when you brake to slow down, and friction of the bike wheel against the brake pad generates heat. So we have in this image several different conversions of energy. One point to note is that because energy cannot be created nor destroyed, the total amount of energy is the same, but it changes from chemical energy to kinetic energy to heat to potential energy to kinetic energy and some lost heat. This slide is a summary. It identifies the different conversions one energy form to another. Starting with a cereal bar, stored energy inside the wrapper. It is not moving, it's not producing heat, but it has the potential to do so once digested. So on top of the hill, the energy expended to get to that point, if you like, has been converted from kinetic energy to potential energy, which is stored by the position, ready to be released as you move forwards and begin to descend the slope. And the heat loss is an important point to realize, to consider, that is lost heat. That's lost energy. And because of that lost energy, all conversions from one energy form to another are less than 100% efficient. That heat effectively warms up air molecules near you and they move away from you, so it's no longer in your body. It's still in the larger system of you and your surroundings. But because we have a limited ability to store energy, and when we use energy, we lose energy, there's a constant need to replace energy, constant need of energy input. We get hungry and we need to eat again. Another example here is chemical energy fuel put into your car. The car converts the chemical energy into motion. So you go forward, you generate heat. Some of that heat is lost from the engine. Some of that heat is lost, as frictional heat lost from the tires. And again, you need to replace that energy that has been used. I mean, you've gone somewhere, but to do so, that has used up fuel. So the next little segment is the TED-Ed lesson, Crash Course in Biology. And I'll just take a little break now and I'll show you where to find that clip in Web Access and then how to use that.